to allude to the issues involved with water reuse and the research we're doing in this area. Typically, when we talk about water reuse, we're talking about reclaimed sewage. Most of our wastewater, which we're trying to use, is derived from sewage. This is not a new concept, reusing wastewater. In the early 1900s, large-scale sewage farms were being developed, and instantly engineers and scientists realised the opportunity to reuse that water. So reuse actually started over 100 years ago, and over the last 100 years many large schemes are in place and are successful. However, there's many challenges to the use of wastewater in society. These are the people's perception of using recycled wastewater and the treatment required to make sure that that wastewater is fit for human consumption. With people's perception of wastewater, there's a good analogy is people's perception of the cost of water. And a few years ago, Martin Place in Sydney, a rainwater tank was set up which had a volume of 18,000 litres. And they also had some water bottles there, the typical water bottles we buy and drink for drinking. And the public were asked about the cost of that water. Now, 18,000 litres of water bottles would equate to about $40,000. However, 18,000 of drinking waters in the 18,000 litre tank would cost about $30. So there's a perception there which we have to overcome with the public. The water is very cheap. So it is a good analogy with the perception with reusing wastewater. But first of all, I'd like to talk about the problem of treatment of wastewater. A big problem we have is convincing the public that we can remove pathogens and pharmaceutical chemicals from the water. These are very diluting wastewater. If you imagine when a person goes to the toilet, it's about 150 ml of waste, which is diluted in about 7 litres of drinking water. So there's a lot of dilution occurs at the toilet. By the time it gets to the treatment plant, it's very dilute. And somehow we have to detect and remove pathogens and things like hormones. So it's a very difficult process. Secondary treatment, which is quite commonly used nowadays, activated sludge. Lots of these compounds are broken down through that process. However, it's still not 100% efficient. So after the secondary treatment, typically wastewater treatment plants have big ponds where they rely on UV disinfection for the breakdown of these pathogens and hormones. And this leads me to the project we're involved with, which is with United Water. United Water installed a DAF plant, dissolved air filtration population plant, at Bolivar several years ago. And this was used to recycle water for irrigation. This plant is capable of producing 150 megalitres of water per day. However, it doesn't actually operate at this level. I think typically Bolivar receives about 60 megalitres of wastewater per day. So this plant receives the the wastewater from the ponds, and these ponds are used for UV disinfection. The problem with this is that these ponds are obviously exposed to solar radiation, so we have massive algal problems. So the algae grow in these ponds, different species throughout the year, and these have to be removed in the process. So we've been working on this area of algal removal using chemical treatment, and the technology we're trying to develop is predictive models which will aid in chemical dosing for the removal of algae. And this is related to the different types of algae, their morphology, composition, etc. Quickly, I'd also like to talk about public perception of drinking wastewater. People think that the public are opposed to this, but they are not. About 90% of people favour the use of reuse water for irrigation. 70 to 90 favour that for reuse for irrigation in the food chain. So really the public aren't against reused water. The problem is with the drinking water. And typically what governments do is they have top-down planning of reuse schemes. So we say to the public, we're going to reuse wastewater for drinking instead of engaging the public. Goulburn Council in Victoria has actually engaged the public to help with the decision process of developing the use of wastewater for drinking.